everyone, Pedro here from CineMilled, and today we are back in the CineMilled garage, my favorite place, and today we are doing something really fun, really cool. As you can see here, we have this beautiful 1949 Chevy 3100 hot rod, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna transform this into the first hot rod lowrider camera truck. And so what's gonna make this possible is the new CineMilled Smart Starter, the hollow version. As you can see here, we're gonna be using one 4-inch Smart Starter, two 2-inch hollow Smart Starters as well for the vertical supports. And then off of that, we're gonna be using a fixed Houdini and then 4 360 Houdinis to connect everything together. So as you can see here, I just laid out all the parts we're gonna be using, and that's a 4-inch hollow Smart Starter and two 2-inch hollow Smart Starters. We got one fixed Houdini that's gonna take us from the bumper starter and give us our vertical tube. And then we gotta have 4 360 Houdinis, which is gonna connect all the tubes together down over to the two 2-inch Smart Starters. And then today, because this is a beautiful truck, it's a hot rod, and what it deserves is our CineMilled carbon fiber Speedrail. So nothing but the best for this build, because if we're gonna do this, we're gonna take it over the top. And so we got all these beautiful new CineMilled vehicle rigging products. We got the sexy new carbon fiber Speedrail, and we're gonna throw that all here so that we can hang our CineMilled action arm off the back of this old beautiful Chevy. And I'm super excited. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Now that we got our new 4-inch and 2-inch hollow Smart Starters, makes this possible, makes this easy, and it makes it safe and solid. Let's not waste time and let's jump right into it. All right, so right off the bat, I'm gonna have a couple of furniture blankets nearby. You see I'm using one here because when you're working with cars like this with extremely expensive paint jobs or an expensive vehicle in general, you want to always be mindful of the vehicle you're working on. So as you can see right here, I put a little bit of the furniture pad there, even though these carbon tubes are pretty light. I got one here on the floor that I'm going to use to lay on. Here is our action arm. We're not going to need this right now, so I'm going to put this up here. Once again, I got my furniture pad there, so no worries there. We need to choose our main hard point. And, you know, on a vehicle, there could be many hard points on the rear, right? The first one that's obvious is a trailer hitch receiver, which on this vehicle, we don't have. We have the frame of the vehicle in the back. Now, behind or under the bumper, we have the frame of the vehicle. And there, on a truck like this, there's probably lots of points that we can probably use one of our Smart Starters to come out and under the bumper. In this case, this vehicle has air ride, and we're going to want to slam it all the way till it lays frame on the ground, right? Because it can do that. So I don't want to have anything poking out from under the vehicle. So upon further investigation, what we found is these are the bumper bolts that help mount the bumper. Now, these two here actually hold the bumper on, so don't mess with those. But now, this one right here is kind of decorative. It has a frame support behind it, but plenty of room back there. So immediately I realized that that's gonna be our main anchoring point for this whole vehicle rigging system that we're gonna build here. So easy enough, I went under the vehicle, I took the bolt off the back, and as you can see here, I'm gonna slip that out right there. So we're gonna set this aside, and that'll give us our main mounting location. So the cool thing about the hollow Smart Starter is that you can run a bolt right through it, which is what we're gonna do, and then run a bolt on the back. So now the solid Smart Starter is a female threaded hole. So if you have access to the rear of whatever you're mounting to, in that case you could use a solid starter. But in many cases like this one, using the hollow and putting the bolt through the top really offers a big advantage. This is really gonna be evident when we put the supports in the bed of the truck. With a solid smart starter, it would be a lot more difficult, if not impossible to do. And with the hollow, it makes it super easy, right? Because you can just, grab, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our Allen key right here. I got a washer. I'm gonna slide that in, and there you go. We have our mounting stud on the back. Now in this case, because I want to protect the surface of the chrome here on the bumper, and in addition to that, the surface is curved, right, as you can see here. So if we just put the starter on there, it's gonna sort of have play back and forth because it doesn't have support. So what we created are these Delrin washers, which we're actually gonna make available on our website. And in this case, I grinded one down so that it was concave on one side. And that then allows us to create a solid, flat, essentially a flat surface for the grenade to lean on and to mount to. So I'm just gonna thread the Delrin washer in right here. It's a good point to bring up. You just saw me use here a 3/8/16 1.5 inch long stainless steel socket head bolt. A lot of this hardware that you're going to see me use today is available on our website. We have a hardware section on our website that has a variety of high quality stainless steel hardware that's not going to rust on you. We're going to start adding a lot more washers and nylock bolts such as this one. So for those of you who don't have a hardware store nearby that has a wide assortment of bolts, nuts, and washers, it can become a way for you to get what you need in one place. So we're just going to slide that in here. All right, well, now all I need to do is tighten this bolt. So we have our wrench here. All right, well, that's it. It's as easy as that went. So now we have essentially a very solid mounting point here right off the bumper of the vehicle without damaging anything on the vehicle to give us our upright supporting position. All right, so now that we have essentially a piece of speed rail coming off horizontally, we now need to change that direction so that we can get our vertical speed rail, which is where we're going to mount our suspension arm, our action arm in this case, or CineMilled action arm. So we are going to take a CineMilled fixed Houdini, right? It's a male and a female bolted together, what we call the fixed Houdini. So these clamps have absolutely no play, zero play, right? And that's very important, well, just about any circumstance, but especially in this one. All right, so we're going to take our fixed Houdini. We are just going to slide that on right here. And as always, I'm going to tighten one side and then the other. All right. So as always, I'm going to tighten one side and then the other and try to keep the load equal on both sides. Now, a quick note about how much to tighten these bolts. I have, rented a few products out to some people and they've come back and I went to undo them. Either the heads were stripped out or they were super hard to undo. There is absolutely no reason to over torque these things, right? The full contact nature of this clamp applies a lot of clamping force, like a vise in a lot of ways. And so it requires a lot less force to achieve a really strong connection. So, this is why I like using an L wrench like this, because it kind of serves as a torque wrench in a way. And so, I have a pretty good feel for what is tight enough. All right, so now we got our fixed Houdini that is at a 90-degree orientation, right, perpendicular. So that is now essentially changing the direction of our speed rail. And so that is what we're going to do. Let me loosen up this clamp right here. All right, so now let's take the first of our carbon fiber speed rail right here, and let me get it started. So this carbon fiber speed rail is available in, oh, let me do this, makes it easier. So this carbon fiber speed rail is available in 1 meter and 2 meter lengths, and you can cut down from there. And, you know, there you have it. Okay. So same thing here. All right, so there you have it. We have our vertical carbon fiber speed rail looking sexy, all ready to go. So now we need to jump into the bed of the truck, and I'm gonna show you how I'm using the 2-inch hollow smart starter to give us a connection point, an anchor point in the bed of the truck in order for us to brace the top of this tube, because by itself, it is far from being enough to hold a camera securely. So let's move on to the next section of this. Now that we have the vertical tube coming from the bumper, now what we need to set up is the triangulation supports, right? Normally you see this in our other videos. We have an SUV vehicle rigging video that's very popular. We use suction cups on the back window of an SUV. Some people go to roof rack rails. In this case of a pickup truck, we actually make a universal pickup truck starter that on newer model pickup trucks, they have these universal stake bed holes that you can attach to and give you a great starting point for your triangulation. In this case, we have to get a little creative, and that's where the new hollow smart starters come into play. Because in this case, as you can see here, we have these fender bolts, right, in the bed of the truck. And the trick here is that that's actually a riv nut, which what that means is the thread is part of the body of the truck. In this case, you couldn't use a solid smart starter because that has a female threaded hole that's threaded in 3/8/16. So even if you threaded in an insert, a threaded insert, right, that would be 3/8/16, and this is not a 3/8/16 threaded hole. And so this is really where the hollow smart starter comes into play in becoming a really key component in your rigging kit, is that things like rigging motorcycles underneath the hood of a car, you're going to have a variety of threaded holes that you'll be able to find. Unfortunately, they will also be a variety of different threads. You'll have metric, you'll have SAE, you know, standard imperial sizes of across the whole size range. And so while there are some double-sided nuts that have different size threads on each side, that's not the best solution, and in a lot of cases you're going to encounter either a thread that you don't have in your kit. So the easier solution is to have a hollow smart starter. And so what we're going to do in this situation is we're simply going to back out the bolt that's already existing, right, in this case right here on the fender, and we're just going to put it on in the inside of the hollow smart starter and simply thread it right back in, giving us a really solid, easy to rig, easy, you know, you're not going to have to mess with those inserts. You're not going to have to try to figure out a solution to get your anchor point. All you do is grab your hollow smart starter, remove the existing bolt out of the vehicle, and then slide this right back in, and you're ready to go. And as you're going to see here, we're going to be rigged up here in a few minutes. So let's jump in and let's do this. So I'm going to grab my Allen here. Happens to be the right size. So I'm going to start undoing this bolt. So this is going to come right out in just a second. There you go. And so we're going to use that existing bolt right in, and it has a washer already, right into our hollow smart starter. Probably the best thing to do here is actually use a ratchet with an extension, as that's a lot easier. If you happen to not have a ratchet with an extension, you can use this trick I do here with the crescent wrench. You stick the end of the crescent wrench into the end of the Allen, and you can use that as leverage, just like that. But the best thing is to actually use a ratchet with an extension. So this is actually what I recommend, which is a ratchet with an extension and a Allen socket for your extension. Now, this is exactly why we made the internal bore of the hollow smart starter large enough so that you can actually use a socket like we are going to do right now. So as you can see here, you don't have to fumble with an Allen key and this weird crescent wrench trick that I just showed you. This is the proper tools for the job. And right there, we can make this nice and secure because you are going to be driving down the road. There's a lot of vibrations in play, and you don't want this to come loose as you drive around, right? And so there we go. Now, as you tighten, the smart starter might start spinning, right? Now, if you want to use that flat side with the threads and you want to keep a certain orientation of the smart starter, you can simply thread a baby pin or any other bolt that you may have that will be one of the threads we have on the side of the smart starter, which is a 1/4 20 3/8 16 on one side, and on the other side we have the metric side with the M8, M10, and an M12. But on the SAE side, you can use a 1/4 20 baby pin or a 3/8 baby pin, which we also make and we sell, and you can hold that as you're tightening it so that it doesn't spin on you, right? So you can maintain the orientation. So that's it. So we got the starter done. Now, I could in theory do this by myself because the carbon fiber Speedrail is very lightweight, but when you're working around a car that has this kind of expensive paint job and it's not something that you want to damage, as usual, you want to have a furniture blanket handy, and I'm going to lay this over just in case the Speedrail slips my hand and you know, gives us a fighting chance at avoiding something embarrassing. So, all right, so we're ready for this Speedrail. So that's roughly going to go right there. So I'm going to take my 360 Houdini, and so there's lots of ways you can play with this. You can angle it this way. You can throw it to the other direction. In this case, I want to do it like this. And so we're going to slide it in there. All right, let me line that up right where I want it. Move the tube to. This is roughly where I want it. To avoid having to split the other Houdini apart, at this point, I'd have my helper grab a second Houdini on the other end and position it at the same time. And then we're going to put it exactly where we want it. I'm going to preload the vertical tube a tiny bit, which means pulling it back towards us a tiny bit, and then I'm going to lock everything into place. All right, so he slid his Houdini onto his end. We have them loose at the moment. So I'm going to lock down. I'm going to lock down this side first. So let me move that back where I want it, right there. Now I'm not going to go really tight right now. So at this point, we have everything just snug, but not tight, which means we can still move the tube around. We can still reposition the clamps and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to pull the vertical back a tiny bit, and then I'm going to have him tighten it, right? This is what I call preloading the tube. So push towards me in the vertical. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now tighten it. All right, so now we just have to rinse and repeat. We have to do the same thing we just did here on the other side. Put our smart starter in, run our other triangulation tube up to the vertical, and then do our final preloading, our final positioning, and then do a final nut and bolt check on all the bolts, and then we're ready for the arm. So right now I'm gonna get to work on the other side and show you a little bit what we're doing on the top. So there you have it. We are nearing the end. This is a really simple, quick installation. Really didn't take that long at all. As you can see here, we got all our carbon fiber speed rail attached and run. And as you're gonna see here, I am shaking the entire car, right? I can't push forward because it's triangulated in that direction. Can't pull this way because the other two legs of the triangle are holding it. The bumper support that we've started off is the one going to be supporting all the weight. The two back tubes are doing the triangulation, the positioning of the tube so it doesn't, become a flagpole and wave around. And at this point, we're ready to throw on our CineMilled action arm. And this is actually the first time in a video for the action arm that you'll see me using the single tube mode, right? So the action arm, which you can see here, comes with the CineMilled Speedrail triple clamp. And this is so you can mount the action arm off of our hitch with the dual speed rails running up. And the advantage of using two vertical speed rails is that you never run a chance of this thing spinning on the speed rail, right? But today, for this build, because we're running not off of a hitch that gives us our perfectly spaced spacing there for our dual verticals, we got a single, and that's not a problem. So let's get this off here. Let's spin these guys off. We got the triple clamps loose. Let's get ready to throw this arm up here. All right, so quick point here about the triple clamp when you're using it in the single tube mode. It will work if you use the outside mounting position holes, right? The clamping holes. We also drilled a tighter spacing here, which will apply a much more even torque on the tube. If you use the outside holes, you're actually sort of, there's no way you're going to bend this really thick piece of aluminum, but in a way you could be applying an uneven sort of torque to the piece. So what I recommend is actually using the two innermost positions. So we're going to do that right here. All right, there you have it. We are pretty much done now. We have just installed the CineMilled action arm on our single vertical speed rail tube utilizing the center hole on the triple clamps. And wow, it really didn't take that long. This was really quick to put together. The new CineMilled smart starters, the hollow smart starters, are really a godsend, really important to have piece to have in your rigging kit because it can solve a lot of problems because it gets rid of being stuck to the 3/8/16 thread. You can just remove the bolt you just pulled out of the vehicle, reutilize that, and you're ready to go. So I hope you got a good look at how important the CineMilled hollow smart starter is. And so now, before we start throwing the camera on here and we're all excited to go shoot, we got to put the brakes on for a second because, as I've brought up in other videos, now is the time to do your nut and bolt check. So it's the time now to go around to all the nuts and bolts that you may see on your build and make sure that they are all snug, right? Especially if you had somebody helping you, because they might thought that you tightened this bolt and you thought that the other person tightened that bolt, and you have a loose bolt which might cause you problems down the road. So do your safety check, do your nut and bolt safety check. And before we go out and shoot, we have one more thing to rig, which is the camera operator position in the cab. And so we're going to be rigging a monitor using our CineMilled suction cup off the windshield, but we'll split that off into another video. And so at this point now, I'm going to put some air in the shock. Get ready to take this thing for a little test drive around the block, make sure everything's working as it should. All right, and I'm really excited to jump in this thing, get some really beautiful footage of other hot rods with our camera car hot rod lowrider. Industry first, you've seen it here. Nobody else has a lowrider camera car 1949 camera car. How about that? I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty excited. And it's time I get that monitor in the front seat and the Ronin 2 on here so we can hit the road and make some beautiful images with our CineMilled action arm. All right, guys, I'll see you on set and I'll see you on the road.